Welcome to Tokyo Wave, recorded in a live studio in Harajuku, Japan, with your hosts Aaron and Parker. Alright everyone, welcome to episode 107 of Tokyo Wave. We're your hosts Aaron Randall
and Parker Allen. This episode is dedicated to Shinzo Abe, Japan's longest-serving prime minister, who was assassinated by a lone gunman on July 8th, 2022, while campaigning for an upper house candidate in Nara Prefecture. May he rest in peace.
On Tokyo Wave, we bring you weekly updates from our studio in Harajuku.
Join us in segments featuring this week's top news,
political happenings,
business,
and other random stuff.
To get us started, here are this week's top news highlights.
Widow of slain ex-Prime Minister Abe not planning to run for seat in Japan's lower house.
Prime Minister Kishida mulls retaining key figures in early September cabinet reshuffle.
With 1,000 days to the Osaka Expo 2025, Kishida calls the event's chance to solve social issues. This week in Japan.
All right, here's our first news item. The widow of slain ex-Prime Minister Abe not planning to run for a seat in Japan's lower house.
The Mainichi has reported that Akiya Abe, the widow of slain former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, said on July 21st she does not plan to run in a by-election due to be held in the wake of her partner's death.
Akiya met Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and other officials of the ruling Liberal Democratic Party on July 21st and attended a meeting of the party's Abe faction at the LDP headquarters.
A by-election is due to be held in the House of Representatives Yamaguchi No. 4 constituency following the former Prime Minister's July 8th assassination during a stump speech in the city of Nara. In connection with this, Akiya stated, "I am not planning to stand as a candidate."
According to attendees of the meeting, Akiya said at the outset of the faction's first general meeting since the shooting that her husband had many things he had wanted to do as chairman of the LDP's largest faction with over 90 members, and added, quote, "I would like you to carry on that work."
At the party headquarters, Akiya also met with the LDP Vice President Taro Aso and the party's Secretary General Toshimitsu Motegi.
Akiya then visited the Prime Minister's office and met with Prime Minister Kishida for about 10 minutes. She additionally visited the offices of former Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga and others to express her gratitude.
And up next, Prime Minister Kishida mulls retaining key figures in early September cabinet reshuffle.
Kyodo News has reported that Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is set to retain core figures in a planned cabinet and ruling party executive reshuffle in the first half of September as he works to establish a long-term administration, according to government sources.
Chief Cabinet Secretary Hirokazu Matsuno, Liberal Democratic Party Vice President Taro Aso, and Secretary General Toshimitsu Motegi are among those who are expected to retain their posts after the party's sweeping victory in an upper house election earlier this month, the sources said.
The LDP's strong showing in the House of Councilors election on July 10th has put Kishida in a position to oversee a 3-year period of stability in which no national elections will be held unless he dissolves the House of Representatives, which is the more powerful lower chamber of parliament.
During the period, the Prime Minister plans to promote urgent issues, including fighting inflation, while seeking to push forward efforts toward revising Japan's US-drafted pacifist constitution,
which of course was a keystone initiative of former Prime Minister Abe.
That's right.
And so Kishida had initially planned to reshuffle his cabinet and LDP executives in late August, but reviewed the time frame in light of a, quote, tight schedule, according to a source at the Prime Minister's office.
A memorial service on the 49th day after former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's murder, a custom for the dead in Japan, is scheduled on August 25th, and Kishida is slated to attend an international conference on African development known as TICAD, which is due to be held in Tunisia for 2 days beginning August 27th.
Looking further ahead, a state funeral for Abe, Japan's longest-serving prime minister who was shot earlier this month, will be held on September 27th, while the incumbent leader is expected to take part in UN General Assembly meetings in late September.
In addition, with an extraordinary parliamentary session slated for the autumn after Abe's state funeral, Kishida is inclined to appoint new cabinet ministers in September so that they have enough time to prepare for Diet deliberations.
In the envisioned personnel change, the LDP president aims to show the unity of the party in the wake of the assassination of Abe, who headed the largest inter-party faction with nearly 100 lawmakers and wielded considerable influence in Kishida's government.
To ensure the stability of his administration, Kishida, who heads the party's fourth largest faction, needs support from Motegi and Aso, who are the leaders of the second and third biggest groups, respectively.
Yeah, it's actually quite rare that a prime minister hails from such a small faction.
Yes.
I think it's actually the first time in post-war history such a thing has happened.
Interesting. You know, from an outsider looking in, this has something to do with, Kishida seems to be, just to say it bluntly, not as powerful as previous prime ministers, right? He doesn't have as much political power.
Yeah, most definitely, because obviously, Abe was in power for 8 years, and then you had Suga, who was Abe's right-hand man.
I totally forgot about Suga.
Exactly. It's like forgetting about Dre. You're not supposed to do it. But now, of course, we have Prime Minister Kishida, and he sort of came about as sort of this almost compromised candidate between the very right-leaning Sanae Takeichi and the very liberal and firebrand option Tado Aso. And so basically both sides met in the middle and say, let's choose Kishida.
Right.
And so that's essentially how it came about. But now we have a prime minister who's been serving in office for over 6 months, and it looks like he's in here for the long haul.
Seems to be the case, for sure.
So to ensure policy continuity, Kishida is likely to keep in their posts Chief Cabinet Secretary Matsuno, an Abe faction member who is essentially Kishida's right-hand man, and Deputy Chief Cabinet Secretary Seiji Kihara, who is another close aide to Kishida.
Alright, and up next, with 1,000 days to the Osaka Expo 2025, Kishida calls the event's chance to solve social issues.
The Mainichi has also reported that Prime Minister Fumio Kishida attended an event to mark 1,000 days before the opening of the 2025 Osaka Kansai Expo, which was ironically held at Tokyo's Skytree Town in Oshiage on July 18th.
Kishida said as he greeted the audience, quote, "Through the expo, we would like to use cutting-edge technology to lay the path to a new age and use it as a chance to solve social issues."
So regarding the expo's theme, Designing Future Society for Our Lives, Kishida commented, quote, "We must overcome epoch-making challenges such as the coronavirus pandemic and the situation in Ukraine. It is a theme befitting the current times."
He suggested that the success at the expo will lead to the success of his signature, quote, "new capitalism policy," saying, "I've been advocating an economic model called new capitalism. I have been making a proposal to create a sustainable society and economy by utilizing social issues such as decarbonization, digitization, health, and hygiene as the engines of growth."
But Twitter is a little bit more interested with a different topic, and so news about this expo being 1,000 days away has reminded Japan's Twitter users about its googly-eyed monster mosque. So That all sounds well and good, but the people of Japanese Twitter are more fixated on other things, particularly the googly-eyed monster mascot for the 2025 Expo, which is now named Myaku Myaku.
The organizer of the 2025 Osaka Kansai Expo selected Myaku Myaku, which means something passed down from generation to generation, as the nickname of the event's official mascot.
The logo's grotesque appearance may look disturbing to viewers, but that's actually why it was chosen.
I'm remembering this image. So, composed of a circle of red round objects representing cells that differ in shape, the logo embodies the event's main theme of the brilliance of life. It looks like something you would see through a microscope, right?
Dude, I'm going to show you this image. So, you've seen the actual like logo, right?
Yes.
And they've turned it into like a yurikara, like someone wearing like a costume.
Oh gosh.
Look at this.
Oh no. But hey, who's gonna forget that?
Yeah, seriously.
I mean,
it looks like the Cookie Monster's being devoured
He's got
by
so many-
the coronavirus.
he's got so many eyes. I mean, yeah. It looks like the Cookie Monster is either zombified or coronavirus-fied.
Wow.
They maimed the Cookie Monster and gave. God, it looks really weird. Artists on Instagram and stuff are gonna have a lot of fun with this footage.
Oh man, the memes are gonna be lit.
Yeah.
So, when the logo was originally unveiled by the association, critical messages poured in online, describing it as, quote, the worst among the 5 final candidate designs.
I haven't seen the candidates, but I don't know. I might already agree with
It
that.
was an outlier, let's just say that.
Yeah. Another critic stated the design is, quote, bizarre and similar to frog eggs. That's never good if that's how it's described. While another comment penned saying, the logo looks like a new kind of monster, and the googly-eyed part looks creepy. It does, in fact, look creepy. Very creepy.
I mean, but it's so like, weird Japanese mascot. It's like the mascot for weird Japanese mascots. They have a new leader.
Yeah.
The googly-eyed Myaku Myaku.
Anyone who knows Japan, or even people who just visit Japan on a yearly basis, pre-COVID, are going to see this and be like, yep, that's Japan, And then everyone...
Those news articles were true.
I feel like people that aren't used to Japan will come here and see that, and they won't forget it. It's after Parker, you just showed it to me. It's probably going to stay in my head for a while.
Oh yeah. It's like it looks like this. It looks like something that devours people's happy dreams or children or.
Doesn't the guy have a hole in him as well? The blue man who looks like he's being infected by the red thing. He's got a hole in the center of his body. So it's really like he's been zombified or something.
Yeah, I mean, you really can't make this shit up.
It's like a parasite that's infected him and is in control of his body now.
Yeah.
I want to make a video game with this character. There's just red goo dropping out of the sky, and everyone that gets hit by it gets infected and all zombified, and you just have to take them out.
And they start talking about this weird thing called new capitalism.
Yeah. Watch out for words like living wage. It will be the death of our society. That's actually from an Amazon propaganda video. FYI, for anyone who's interested.
Yeah, they should make Bezos wear the costume.
Dude, that'd be epic.
I can imagine the US government being like, you know what, Bezos, we're not going to fine you this $5 billion, but what we are going to do is we're going to make you wear this Japanese costume for a month. And you're going to look like a googly-eyed monster, and you're not going to be able to take the costume off.
Mr. Bezos, we just got word that the Japanese Kansai Expo mascot has gone up for sale, so I bought it. And I think this should be the new Amazon logo because it perfectly embodies what we are. We control 90% of the internet. We basically run everything and control everything. We are the parasite that infects all the people of the world. In 90%. I mean, everything goes through us.
And it's got googly eyes.
I like the googly eyes. But John, you're fired.
However, other online users looked favorably upon the design and noted it conjures up thoughts of Muku, a famous character from a children's TV program, wonder which one that is, or the package illustration of Tohatu's snack food caramel corn. Yeah, that does not look like caramel corn.
Many individuals who love the peculiar design, which makes people more attached to it after repeatedly seeing it, later started posting images of bread and a key ring they created in the image of the logo on social media.
So the Expo's logo was developed by a graphic designers group called Team Inari based in Osaka.
According to Tomotsu Shimada, 55, head of the team Inari, the red circles and ovals reproduce cells and the eye-like section depicts the cell nucleus. The two different designs were combined to portray the brilliance of life.
So Shimada, who was born and raised in Osaka, was deeply moved by the Tower of the Sun artwork building designed by the late artist Taro Okamoto when he visited the 1970 Osaka Expo as a child.
Myaku Myaku's design won 8 votes out of the total of 11 in the committee and was praised by the panel chairman, famous architect Tadao Ando, as expressing a sense of pleasure typical of Osaka and being weird, which is part of its attraction.
I wonder how drunk Mr. Ando was when he made these remarks.
So, this design really reminds me of Yayoi Kusama, who I think redesigned the interior of some big shopping building in Ginza.
Yeah, she also did a lot of work with Louis Vuitton and lots of dots.
Yes, there are dots everywhere. Her stuff is actually kind of pleasing and relaxing. It's weird, but it's cool. This one was a little bit too weird, Yeah,
I mean, it's like the weird Japan people won this time, right?
Yeah.
The interesting thing about Yayoi Kusama, though, is that she's actually mentally challenged and she, quote, has to create or she'll have this uncontrollable urge to want to kill herself. Yes.
I think I saw this on Japanese TV. It's like that, and also the anxiety is insane. When she's not creating. Yeah. Mad respect for her. She makes some really cool stuff. Maybe they should have gotten her to do this.
Yeah, at least the circles would have been proper circles.
This one's too gooey. You know?
Yeah, it's you can feel the goo.
You can feel the goo, and it's funny. One of the smartest people I know, when he was in Japan, he was getting his PhD. He's a mushroom scientist. After about a month in Japan, this guy, he speaks a lot of languages, so he picked up Japanese really quickly, and he could tell what people were talking about. And I remember we went out to drink, and he's like, "Aaron, how come there's so much goo in Japan? Japanese people really like slime stuff, don't they?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he was talking about at the konbini, how they have the little packets, and it's instead of getting the regular drink, you can get the slime or the jelly version, right? And then also natto. What's the other orange stuff you put on the rice? Not orange.
You beat up a raw egg.
Yeah, like raw eggs and stuff. Basically, that was his big shock, was wow, there's a lot of slime based foods and integrations of slime in a lot of Japanese. It sounds bad using the word slime because it's not slime, right? But it has a slimy texture to it. So I thought that was, I remember when he told me that, I was laughing, and I had a realization myself. I'm like, yeah, there's actually a lot of foods that have that kind of textural element to them.
What can I say, buddy? We like goo. There's even a big internet company called Goo.
Yeah, it's true.
Because we like goo. Forget about it.
Yeah. All right, and up next on Tokyo Panic Room, we're going to be talking about how 2.5 seconds of security lapses sealed Shinzo Abe's tragic fate.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Tokyo Wave.
Reuters reporter Satoshi Sugiyama recently released an analysis of the situation surrounding the shocking killing of former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. According to 8 security experts who reviewed footage of the former Prime Minister's assassination, bodyguards could have saved Shinzo Abe if they shielded him or removed him from the line of fire in the 2.5 seconds between the missed first shot and a second round of gunfire that fatally wounded him.
Japanese and international experts said that the failure to protect Abe from the second shot followed what appeared to be a series of security lapses in the lead up to the assassination of Japan's longest-serving prime minister on July 8th.
Abe's killing in the western city of Nara by a man using a homemade weapon shocked a nation where gun violence is rare and politicians campaign up close to the public with light security.
Japanese authorities, including Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, have acknowledged security lapses, and police say they are investigating.
In addition to the security experts, Reuters spoke to 6 witnesses at the scene and examined multiple videos available online, taken from different angles, to piece together a detailed account of security measures ahead of Prime Minister Abe's fatal shooting.
The footage showed that the 67-year-old Abe was left exposed from behind as he spoke on a traffic island on a public road. In doing so, Abe's security detail allowed the shooter, identified by police as Tetsuya Yamagami, 41 years old, to come within meters of Abe's unchecked carrying a weapon.
Kenneth Bombas, head of Global Threat Solutions, which provided security to Joe Biden when he was a presidential candidate, said that, quote, "The security should have seen the attacker very deliberately walking towards the rear of the prime minister and intervened."
Yeah, this reminds me of anytime any politician, right, especially an ex-president, is speaking somewhere, you've got 5 to 10 guys in black suits with sunglasses, and they're looking everywhere, 360 degrees, right? And they're looking at like nearby buildings.
Those are just the guys that you see.
Those are the guys that you see, right?
Yeah, and then, of course, there's plain clothes, there's people on top of buildings, there's snipers.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, they do a security sweep.
Yeah, exactly. I was just about to say, too, like, Abe was in a really dangerous position because he was surrounded by apartment buildings, right? And there could have been a shooter from there, and then they might not, this could have happened and they wouldn't even have known who it was,
So the Yomiuri newspaper said that Yamagami came within around 7 meters or 23 feet of Abe before firing his first shot, which missed. However, Yamagami fired the second shot, which hit at around 5 meters away.
John Soltis, a former Navy SEAL and CIA officer, now a vice president at security firm Prosegur, said that Abe's bodyguards did not appear to have, quote, concentric rings of security around him, and also saying they didn't have any kind of surveillance in the crowd.
Asked about the expert's analysis, the Nara Prefectural Police in charge of security for Abe's campaign stop told Reuters in a statement that the department was, quote, committed to thoroughly identifying the security problems with Abe's protection, while declining to comment further.
Such a reactionist statement. I mean, it's kind of infuriating to hear it now because obviously they should have done this before, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they really just thought nothing of the fact that the former prime minister, longest serving in Japanese history, was going to be visiting their prefecture and making a campaign stop,
Yeah.
There were only 5 people that were tasked with securing the former prime minister.
And they were all on the ground, right?
5.
Yikes.
5.
So the video showed that after the first shot, Abe turns and looks over his left shoulder. 2 bodyguards scrambled to get between him and the shooter. one holding a slim black bag. Two others head toward the shooter, who moves closer through the smoke.
Mitsuru Fukuda, a Nihon University professor specializing in crisis management and terrorism, said that although Abe's security tackled the assailant moments later and arrested him, it was, quote, the wrong response for some of the security to go after the shooter instead of moving to protect Abe.
Yasuhiro Sasaki, a retired police officer in Saitama Prefecture near Tokyo who handled security for VIPs, said that there was enough security, but no sense of danger. Everyone was startled and no one went to where Abe was.
And this is absolutely true. I mean, looking at the footage, it's like nobody's going towards the VIP. Everybody's just like, what happened? What happened? What happened? And then they notice this guy. And then by the time they identify him, boom.
Yep. And the guy with the microphone, with the loud mic that you can hear, he's asking people, does anyone have an AED? Is there any nurse in the audience? I mean, come on, man. That's stuff they should have had on site, right?
So the Tokyo police, who are in charge of VIP politicians' bodyguards, referred questions to the Nara police. Again, pushing the buck.
Yep.
See the buck? It's over there. Go to Nara.
Hot potato. The National Police Agency, which oversees local police forces, said Abe's killing was the result of the police failing to fulfill their responsibility, and said it had to set up a team to review security and protection measures and to consider concrete steps to prevent such a serious incident from occurring again.
That sounds like it might be a good idea.
They need some help from the US, South Korea, other countries that have more military training, because...
Anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, like, total randos could have done a better job.
Mm-hmm.
The National Police Agency said in response to questions from Reuters, quote, we recognize that there were problems not only in the on-site response, such as the security and protection setup, deployment of personnel, and fundamental security procedures, but also in the way the National Police Agency was involved.
Reuters could not reach the shooter Yamagami, who remains in police custody, for comment and could not determine whether he had a lawyer.
Koichi Ito, a former sergeant at the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department's Special Assault Team, who is now a security consultant, said that the footage shows 4 bodyguards inside the guardrails as Abe spoke. The number of security personnel was corroborated by local politician Masahiro Okuni, who was also at the scene.
When the former prime minister stepped up to speak, the shooter Yamagami could be seen in video footage clapping in the background. And I've seen this footage too. He was right across the street, very close. And the cameras that were filming at that time had a perfect shot of him.
The footage also showed that security did not appear to take action as Yamagami walked up behind Abe.
A member of the U.S. Diplomatic Security Service, which protects senior diplomats and foreign dignitaries, said that Abe should have had a dedicated close protection bodyguard to get him away, stating that we would grab him by the belt and collar, shield him with our body, and move away. That's the American way, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, get the VIP to safety first.
Right.
That's
after the first shot.
Yeah.
You know?
Before the first shot, I mean, as soon as bro busts out something that looks like a gun.
Yeah, I mean, in the States, any suspicious person starting to walk towards, the speaker or whoever the VIP is,
oh yeah,
would have been gone in a second.
It would have been like, the Super Bowl. It would have been clocked.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Katsuhiko Ikeda, former superintendent general of the Tokyo Police, who ran security for Japan's Group of 8 summits in 2000 and 2008, said the situation would have developed very differently if Abe's security detail had been close enough to reach him in a second or two.
Ito, the former police sergeant, said security could have stopped at the first shot had they been vigilant and communicating, stating that, quote, even if they missed that, there was a more than 2-second window before the second shot, so they definitely could have prevented that. If Abe had been protected properly, the fatal shot could have been avoided.
You know, obviously, we're talking about this. It's a done deal. We can't turn back time, but it just really pains me to see these various videos and these different people all coming to the same conclusion that it just really seems like people were aloof. People weren't paying attention. And the people tasked with protecting the former prime minister weren't doing their jobs.
Yeah. You know, Parker, one thing that really got me pissed off too is the day after this happened, because it was still prior to the election, people were still stomping, you know, in various areas, like high up leaders, like you said, supporting the candidates, doing the same thing Abe was doing. And it didn't look like they had any extra security. So the day right after, they were still doing the same thing with all the same issues. I mean, that really frustrated me as well. Because in America, the first, you know, while we were watching this live, I think one of the things that went through all of our heads is this guy like alone? Is he part of a group? You know, and in America, that would be the first assumption. Like the worst case scenario, this is a cell. There's going to be more attacks, right? So everyone that's planning to stomp, don't stomp, you know?
Yeah, it's a really weird situation. And I think after, you know, people really start to come to terms with what happened and the lapses in security, I do think there's going to be a big revisiting of how VIP's security is looked after with regard to senior Japanese politicians. At least I hope so.
Yeah.
Because, you know, once something like this happens, the lack of security is now obvious. And so it's out there in the open that any yokel with the means to watch enough YouTube videos to put together a homemade gun has a shot at taking out anybody.
It's really, really scary. You know, these kinds of things are the stuff that you see when countries are collapsing. You know, whenever there's a coup and they're trying to take out certain political leaders because the military is trying to take over the country or someone else is trying to take over the country, right? You don't see this kind of stuff in countries like Japan, South Korea that have such a low, I mean, what is it? Less than 10 people a year die by gun death in Japan, correct? And maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe it's just injured, right?
Yeah, it's a really sad thing that happened. Obviously, you know, hindsight is 2020. Not to point fingers at any particular individuals, but it seems like a lack of coordinated security around the prime minister really was the catalyst that allowed this tragic event to happen.
So, you know, Parker, I think you and I are both very sad and shocked by this. You know, for me, Abe was the mascot of Japan. Not just the mascot, but the daihyo, the representative of Japan, even though he wasn't the acting prime minister. When I first came to Japan, I remember signing up to get my visa and everything. And on this website, this goofy website, there was a video at the top and it was Abe. And he's like, we want you to come to Japan. You know, like he was kind of everywhere and trying to pull researchers, students, businesses to come to Japan.
And he did so much for the country's economy and really sort of created a lot of the framework for a lot of the things that Prime Minister Kishida is working on right now. And of course, people had different opinions about this, but in his 8-year tenure, I think it's somewhat indisputable that Prime Minister Abe raised Japan's profile on the global stage and envisioned things like the creation of the Quad, which of course is now leading these Indo-Pacific security dialogues, and so many other things like championing for economic reform, structural reform within Japan's bureaucracy, and supporting getting more women into business and politics.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's just been such a driving force for so many things in Japan that really if it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have happened. I'm very sad too because anything foreign related, like lifting the entry ban or he's been telling Kishida since last year, we need to get rid of the entry ban, let the tourists come back. I hope the current LDP will carry on a lot of these initiatives that Abe started, because I think that they will benefit Japan in the long run, especially on the global stage.
Definitely. And, obviously this was a tragic end for the former prime minister, but we cannot forget his legacy. And I think the things that he did and the things that he achieved in his tenure as prime minister, and even after stepping down as prime minister, really deserve, of course, the highest gratitude, of course, from the Japanese people, from foreign residents like ourselves, and also globally. I mean, he really did so much on the global stage as a leader who brought Japan's diplomacy into the modern age. It was really shocking for me personally, too, because I had just seen Prime Minister Abe speak twice within the last 2 months of this tragic event happening. So wow. I was up close and personal, and even me and the people who I had gone to these events with noted the lack of security and thought, where's the security sweep? They didn't check our bags. This is weird. This is almost dangerous.
Yeah.
It was very lax.
So, Parker, I know you were on Indian TV. Sorry, I don't know the name of the channel, but you were interviewed on live TV, right? That was broadcasted in India about Shinzo Abe's.
Yeah, I don't know exactly why they decided to interview me of all people, but I was interviewed by WION TV, one of India's major international news TV channels, and I gave a eulogy of sorts where I characterized former Prime Minister Abe as a fighter and someone who fought for Japan relentlessly, fought for Japan on the global stage, fought for the interests of Japan, even after his tenure as prime minister, and tragically had to spend the last hours of his life fighting for his life. And it really is a sad thing that happened, but it, of course, at the same time is an epic end to an epic individual.
Abe will no doubt go down in the history books and will be remembered probably for the next 100 years or so.
Hey, listeners, that's right. You listener right there.
Who do you think should be our next guest on Tokyo Wave? Let us know. Drop us a line at wave@tokyowave.jp.
We hope you enjoyed Tokyo Wave.
If you haven't already, you could subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube.
Join us again next week on Tokyo Wave.